of a dream.
You guys know that song, Boulevard of Broken Dreams? I saw some of you guys singing along with it. Never heard it? It got to that one part in the verse, and I know some of you guys were like, how shoreline are we going to go on this thing? I saw you mouthing along. You guys know who you are. Yeah, we can switch up a word. That's okay. Well, good morning. My name's Graham Cowgill, one of the pastors here. We made it. Yeah, you like these? Check out these new kicks, baby. What? Ross, Dress for Less. They're the only ones that have clown shoes. You ever go to Ross and you're like, there's like a ton of like size 22 cleats that started off at like 120 and then the X's down to $1.57. That's where Graham makes his move right there. So I bought them and some are like, those are Steph Curry's. I was like, I know that, Ross, what's up? All right, so maybe some of you guys know this. I used to be youth pastor. Before that even, I taught children's church. I'm going to tell you right now, you want some sweet answers to questions, teach children's church. Yeah, the purity of those answers is just delicious, right? So I was in there, and one service, I was like trying to inspire and just, hey, let's dream, right, to these kids and say, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? And the first kid raised his hand and goes, I want to be an astronaut. And I was like, my man, because that's what I wanted to be when I grew up. Like that was my answer. And then I was 5'6" in third grade and found out astronauts are the size of horse jockeys and that wasn't going to work for me. And so, I didn't want to crush this kid's soul, not at age 5. And so I was like, hey, go for it, man. Very next kid, this is a true story. Next kid raised his hand. I was like, yeah, dude, what do you want to be when you grow up? And he goes, I want to be a corn dog. And I was like, okay. Yeah, you got a plan B or? And so in my mind, I was just praying. I was like, maybe it's a metaphor for something, right? So I was like, I don't really understand. Like, does that mean something else? He's like, no, like, at a fair, like when you buy a corn dog on a stick. And I was like, yeah, that's what I was afraid of. I know what a corn dog is. Now I'm going to tell you, Graham doesn't know science. Graham doesn't know math. Graham knows corn dogs. I know my way around some carnival food and can't be 100% sure. You're never 100% sure. But I was pretty sure that this kid was not going to grow up to be a corn dog. Just looking at him, I was like, I don't think you got it. You're not corn dog material, buddy. But I'm trying to, just think, teaching this class, like, how do I shepherd this kid through this moment? Like, what do I say to him? So I just leaned down, and I looked him in his eyes, and I said, buddy, don't you ever let anybody tell you can't be a corn dog. And I'm going to tell you, I would give anything to know where that kid is nowadays. There's no way that kid is shooting his plan A in life, right? I'm sure there's like a True TV special on him. It's like my weird obsession with mustard or something. I don't know. All right, so you probably didn't grow up hoping to be a corn dog. If that kid was in this room now, that would be the best day of my life. It's not, is it? All right. Yay, congratulations, dude. You made it. Keep deep frying yourself. But every one of us probably grew up with dreams, right? We grew up with some sort of plan of how our life was going to go. Maybe that for you, your dream was what you were going to do. Maybe your dream was just what you were going to be. Maybe your dream was what your life looked like as far as your family dynamic. Maybe your dream was where you were going to live. I did an exercise when I was grown, but it was a number of years ago. One of the most eye-opening exercises I've done, the guy who's leading me in this, he gave me a piece of graph paper. And he said, draw a timeline of your life, birth till now. And I want you to, in 30 minutes, that's the key, by the way. You have 30 minutes. I want you to chart out as many things as you can remember in your life, and then jot them down on this timetable. And then I want you to essentially rank everything, every event that you're putting on there from 1 to 10. 1 being the worst thing that's ever happened, 10 being just complete elation, right? So I go through and I mark on the timetable, and actually the first thing that made its way onto my graph was 9 years old. We were moving from San Francisco to Texas, and that registered at about a 7 for me. Kind of a mix between nervous and excited for this move. Very next thing, same year when I was 9 years old and had just moved to Texas, was my parents' divorce. And that was a 1. And for me personally, by the way, you want to talk about broken dreams. When you just kind of grow up thinking this is the way that my life is going to look, that moment for me, everybody had that moment. Everyone here has had that moment when you're like, oh, life isn't going to look the way that I thought. And maybe that moment was done to you. Maybe that moment was because of a personal choice you made. But it's like, oh, I had dreamed this, I had thought this, I had looked forward to this, and that is no longer my reality. That was that moment for me. Marked it as a 1. Year later, my dad got remarried, and I marked that as a 4. A year later, he got divorced. I marked it as a 3. Year later, he got remarried. I marked it as a 5. A year later, he got divorced. I marked it as a 4. And then it was very interesting in retrospect. It was the next 15 years on this graph, everything was between a 4 and a 6. And I just realized, oh, I just completely shut myself off emotionally. I didn't dare to expect. I didn't dare to dream anymore because I didn't want to feel the 3s, the 2s, and the 1s. But also, in doing so, I'd essentially sacrificed the 7s, the 8s, the 9s, and the 10s. I'd gone numb. Maybe you resonate with that idea of just stopping dreaming. You've just stopped dreaming. That's cool when you're a kid, but you've had enough dreams that you've looked forward to that have failed that you don't want to feel the 3s and the 2s and the 1s, and you just quit dreaming. I think probably no time in history there was more of that than 2020. And people are, you know what? I'm willing to dream again. I'm going to give it another shot. And you sat here at 2019, at the beginning of 2020, you said, this is the year, and this is what I hope for. And guess what happened? 2020 happened. And maybe just kind of another notch on the board that you're just saying, never again. And I'm into dreaming. I mean, it sounds good, but it just hurts too bad. Right? Like just dreaming just hurts too bad. So everyone depressed now? Okay. Well, see you guys next week. Instead of just being depressed, I think we can learn a little bit about ourselves, just almost kind of the year in review, in retrospect about 2020, how we handled our broken dreams. Every single one of us had something we were hoping for, and then 2020 just slapped you upside the face, right? Every one of us, nobody was expecting that. And so we can say, how did we react? And based on how we react, do we have an opportunity to set a foundation for 2021 that is healthy? To shift in a healthy way to, is it okay to dream? Is it okay to have the expectations? Is it our reaction to that? Let's look at that. So, when we have proximity to pain, when we have close proximity to death, when we have close proximity to loss, chances are one of 3 things, we have one of 3 reactions. This past year, I'm sure you had one of these 3 reactions when you had loss, or pain, or death, even death of a dream. First one is this: paralysis. Paralysis. You just didn't know how to react. You thought that was me on the divorce. That's how I thought things were going to go. When it didn't, I didn't know what to do. This was uncharted territory for me. What happens in paralysis, essentially, is the unknown becomes so scary, so depressing, so filled with hypothetical failure that what we do is we reduce our lives down to what we can control 100%. That's paralysis. As you're saying, no, too much variable there. Too much room for failure there. I'm going to get it down to this. And what happens, everybody has been there, is that if you're living in paralysis, it feels like you're breathing through a coffee stirrer. You're a shell of yourself. Life is not free. Life is not fulfilling. Life is not all that it can be. It just feels like you are just kind of stuck in this place. Maybe that was your 2020. Another reaction that we can have in proximity to death, pain, loss is bitterness. Bitterness. You just become skeptical. You become jaded. You become frustrated. You become resentful. And you just, you're the one who scowls through life, assuming the worst. Not daring to dream, but when somebody has expectations, you try to convince them that they shouldn't. Because you go, dude, like me with the kid, it's not going to work out, dude. It's not going to work out. Maybe your reaction in 2020 was bitterness, but I do think that there is a third option. There is a possibility that our proximity to pain, to loss, even death of a dream can actually spur passion. There's a possibility that it can stir passion, that God can actually use something that's bad, even a broken dream, the death of a dream, to awaken sensitivity in you, to awaken sensitivity of perspective, to awaken intentionality. How do we get that? How do we choose passion instead of the other? So I want you just to look in this past year in honesty. There's no raising of the hands or anything, just so you know what you naturally bend to. But think of an event in 2020, we all had one. Think of an event that you would say impacted you the most as far as loss. Again, whatever that is. If that's an actual physical death or the death of a dream or a moment of pain, how did you react? Was it paralysis? Did you just clam up and say, I'm not dreaming again? Was it bitterness? Would you characterize 2020 as just you were frustrated? You were the scowler for that year? Or was it passion? And it's good to know because chances are you're going to have more pain and loss in 2021, and today is all about setting our foundation of how we can react to that in a new way. So, in my estimation, this idea of unmet expectations, broken dreams, broken agendas, maybe there is no more extreme example of this than the life of Jesus in a different way. So Jesus came here to earth and he loved tirelessly. He continually served. With every breath, with every waking moment, he was loving people. That's what he was doing. He was others focused. How can I love? How can I serve? And still, he knew that at some point, the culmination of his purpose here on earth was going to be a brutal murder and raising from the dead. I don't think that was unmet expectations. I'm not saying that because Jesus knew that this was what his life's purpose was. I'm not saying it was broken dreams because, again, he knew and spoke openly about it. But I am saying that we need to realize that as far as everything that we want and comfort and our desire, Jesus actually had a conversation with his Father begging him. He said, God, if there is any other way for this to go down, do that. Like, while he is just sweating drops of blood. He knew the agony that set before him. Any other way, God, please do that. And then here is the linchpin of the entire message, maybe the linchpin of 2021 for us. His final reaction is to say, alas, not my will, but yours be done. Alas, not my will, but yours be done. I said a second ago that Jesus would speak about the end of his life, and he did very openly. To his disciples are like his closest followers, and he would say, hey, I'm going away. I'm going to be killed. And they didn't pick up on it. They didn't understand it. The people around him didn't understand it. After he was dead and had raised from the dead, in retrospect, they look back and go, oh, that's what he was talking about. But they didn't understand when he was telling them. There's a really cool verse. This is just a conversation that he's having with them. And here's how he phrases it that I think that we can take something from. John 12:24. Very truly I tell you, unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds. It goes on in verse 25. Anyone who loves his life will lose it. Anyone who hates his life in this world will keep it forever. Anyone who hates his life, when it says hates his life, that's not saying be miserable. That's not saying that you can't enjoy life. Here's what it's saying is that anyone who loves his life will lose it. Means if you prioritize your agenda over God's, if you prioritize your comfort even over what God has for you, if you prioritize your control, your expectations, even your dreams over what God has for you, then there will come a time that voluntarily or involuntarily, you will lose it. For all of us, there will be a day of reckoning where we just simply realize we are not in control. Voluntarily or involuntarily. And if we try to hold on to our way, our agenda, our plans, that day is more brutal. You're going to lose it, right? God is saying, I am in control. My will be done. Hop on board rather than me prying this from your hands. And I love what the beginning of this verse says when it talks about the seed. If it dies, it produces many seeds. So here's what I thought. If it dies, it produces many seeds. That there's a chance for us to take our broken dreams and plant them. We can plant our broken dreams. We can plant our unmet expectations, and God can actually create beauty and create more seeds out of them, but we have to plant them. If we don't cultivate the soil, in the wake of unmet expectations, in the wake of broken dreams, if we don't cultivate the soil, do you know what it creates? It creates bitterness. It creates paralysis. But if we cultivate the soil and we intentionally plant it, it can create more seeds. So how do we do that? How do we cultivate the soil? How do we plant it? It's very simple. Jesus showed us in the example. You just say, not my will, but yours be done. Very simple and very difficult statement. In the wake of broken dreams, in the wake of unmet expectations, we say, not my will, but yours be done. You're saying, man, I thought I'd be married by now. Not my will, but yours be done. Right? Man, I thought I'd have kids by now. Not my will, but yours be done. I thought I'd be a grandparent by now. I thought I would have this job. I thought I'd be retired. I thought I'd be healed from this. I thought it's a forfeiture of control. Not my will, but yours be done. I know what happens is the more times we say, not my will, but yours be done, then we have this fertile soil of surrender. And out of the fertile soil of surrender, faith grows. And faith is able to grow because when we abandon our control, when we abandon our agenda, when we abandon the way that we want to do things, we see God take our broken dreams and create beauty out of it. And when we see many seeds produced, when we see beauty come of it, that increases our faith to know, man, God is so much better than we are. He is so much bigger than our expectations. In fact, our God is orchestrating things supernaturally, eternally, even using our fertile soil. In fact, God can use your fertile soil, the wake of a broken dream, probably even more than he can with somebody who doesn't dream. Go for it. Please dream big. And once you do, your faith will be reproduced, but you have to plant it, right? So, the question is your dream's death seeding life? Is it? And by the way, there's no statute of limitations on this. If you had a dream that was 10 months ago, an unmet expectation, and things didn't go the way you did, you haven't missed your opportunity. You still have the chance right now to be open-handed and say, not my will, but yours be done. You can still plant that broken dream. God can still use that. He can still create seeds out of that. You know, we tried to be hyper aware of this past year with Shoreline, and we entered the year, we thought, very open-handed. In fact, we went away as a team and we said, all right, what does this year look like, right? And so we had some values that we thought God spoke to us. Values for us as Shoreline Church, even like point of emphasis values for the year. And then we had this big old whiteboard of how we thought that was going to go. This is how we think it's going to play out, which is at what point God chuckled probably a little bit, right? And winked at us. But we came back, and I'll tell you that what I've seen throughout this year is that the values have remained pure. What God gave us, the why, the engine behind what we do has not changed. Even the point of emphasis values for 2020 remained integrous the entire year. Now, the whiteboard's got some John Madden marks on it, right? There's some redirecting on the whiteboard, believe you me. But you know what I think? I think God loves that whiteboard. I think he loves it. I think he loves it. He gave us a dream. He gave us passion. And we said, we're going to take off after it. And he's like, go, boy, right? Go do it. If you have something that is stirring passion in your life, if you have a dream that is sparking inside of you, trust that is God-given and run after it. But know that running after it's going to get John Maddened. You're going to have a whiteboard that's going to have crosses and marks over and redirecting. Proverbs 16:9 says, we can make our plans, but the Lord determines our steps. We can make our plans, but the Lord determines our steps. And you know what we learned in 2020 just as a church? If God's going to direct your steps, you got to be moving. You got to be moving if God's going to direct your steps. You got to be stepping. So I want to encourage you. I don't know what that dream is that is inside of you that you're so afraid to tackle because of the 3s and the 2s and the 1s on your graph chart. But God says, run after it. Don't worry about the whiteboard. I'll direct all that. I'll curb you. If you're going the wrong way, I promise I will redirect you. I will direct your steps, but you got to be moving towards it. You got to trust me enough to move at the things that I've given you. Every time that things shift or you're redirected, just know that is God maneuvering you. And you know, sometimes when we get shifted, especially in the wake of 2020, you know what we realize sometimes? Is that sometimes our dreams aren't big enough, you know? Seemed like a good time for a drink. One of my favorite movies is Mr. Holland's Opus. Have you ever seen that movie? It's just, my gosh. If you've never seen it, just shame on you. Shame. Every time I see that movie, I cry so much that I get diarrhea, to be honest. I just get dehydrated. I know I didn't have to share that, but it's a moment of vulnerability. You're going to laugh? That's cute. It's just like the most gut-wrenching story. Anyway, in this movie, this guy, Glenn Holland, up-and-coming composer, and his dream is New York City. His dream is Broadway. But he has kind of this like pit stop job where he takes on being a music teacher at a high school. And again, that's just, hey, I'm here for a second, but I'm on my way there. Well, he gets his job as this high school music teacher and life happens, right? His wife gets pregnant, money gets tight, and what was supposed to be a pit stop, his life just turns into this kind of daily investment in these kids' lives. sometimes enthusiastic, sometimes begrudging, but this is what his life becomes. And he blinks 3 times, and he finds that he's been at this job for 30 years, and comes to the end of it. And actually, in the movie, the school is cutting funding to the music program, and so he's being pushed into retirement. And there's a scene where he is packing up his stuff, and he's thinking to himself, man, did I even matter, you know? Like, I think he has that replay of the Broadway dream, replay of the New York City dream. He's like, dude, did my life even matter? And he's making his way out, and he hears this commotion, this sound in the auditorium, so he goes to investigate it, and he walks in, and the auditorium is packed with thousands of his students through his 30 years of teaching. And there's businessmen and businesswomen. There are politicians. And every single one of them has a sense of value, has a sense of worth because of his daily investment in the lives. And I think he sits down on the front row and just recognizes, oh my gosh, the world has changed because I was willing to love and invest 1 minute at a time. I gotta tell you, sometimes our dreams aren't big enough. Sometimes we think that the dream is Broadway. Sometimes we think that the dream is New York City. And a lot of times God is doing something we don't see. He's way smarter than we are. And he's given us opportunity to invest so that our legacy of love reaches far beyond what we could ever imagine. Sometimes our dreams aren't big enough. I used to do this activity when I was youth pastor. I gotta transition into drinking water better. That's my 2021 dream. But this exercise that we did, which was beautiful, is we'd have all the parents come in for like a parent night, and we get a jar and just a ton of marbles. And the marbles would represent every week of life. And so what we'd have the parents do is fill this jar of marbles essentially we'd count out how many weeks from birth to graduating high school. And you would fill the jar with those marbles, and then essentially you would take out as many as had passed, the weeks that had passed, depending on how old your kid was, and you would see visually how many weeks you had left with your kid. And the visual is jarring, guys. It really is. And we would encourage the parents, we'd say, hey, make this a rhythm. Make this a rhythm. Every week, have some sort of something and take a marble out. And what we found is it called so much intention to lives. If you just went a week and you were just on autopilot and you had to take a marble out, you're like, man, did I have those combos, right? Did I have that time? We recognized it. And, I thought this. Though it didn't look like we thought that it would, every single one of us took out 52 marbles in 2020. You took out 52 marbles of your kid's jar in 2020. You know what else? Though it may not look the way that you think, every one of us is going to take out 52 marbles in 2021. And you have a choice. Are we going to give in to bitterness? Are we going to give in to paralysis? Or are we going to be a group that leans into the fulfilling life that God has for us? Are we going to be one that lets even unmet expectations and broken dreams fuel 2021, fuel the passion and the drive for the things that God has given us? Your whiteboard's going to be crazy. Don't worry about that. Are you willing to run towards what God has given you? Are you willing to dream again? Are you willing to risk the 3s and the 2s and the 1s to know that God has 7s, 8s, 9s, and 10s for your life? Are we willing to be those people who set the example of risk? We'll go. Do we have the people who are willing to set the example for passion, for investment? How is God calling you to lean in? John 16:24. Jesus said, until now you have asked nothing in my name. Ask and you will receive, that your joy may be full. Psalm 16:11, you make known to me the path of life, God. In your presence there is fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore. John 10:10, Jesus said, look, the thief comes to kill, steal, and destroy. I come that you may have life, life abundantly. God wants 2021 to be good for us, guys. He wants this to be the year that we step in. And so we charge, essentially, that we are not going to be caught in paralysis because 2020 looked the way that it did, the exact opposite. We're going to plant those broken dreams, and we're going to step into 2021 trusting, having faith that God is going to continue to work. I don't know, next year when we're sitting here, I don't know where you're going to be vocationally, emotionally, even physically. And I'm willing to bet that I don't even know that matters. You know what I think matters? I think what matters is how we get there. That's what matters. We think Arrival too much. We think Broadway too much. Matters how you get there. How are you investing? How are you daily dreaming and open-handed? There's a beautiful quote that I found from this author, Wayne Dyer. He said, when you dance, your purpose is not to get to a certain place on the floor. It's to enjoy each step along the way. So man, I got to ask us, are you dancing? Are you dancing? Is 2021 a year of dancing? Is 2021 a year of daring to dream again and enjoying the life that God has given you? Taking the unmet expectations, planting them in fertile soil of surrender, and watching as God creates seeds of faith and hope in your life? Psalm 37:4, take delight in the Lord, and he will give you your heart's desires. What is that passion in you that you can start taking a step towards? Trust that he will redirect your whiteboard. You don't have to worry about that. But how can you run towards it? What is your step in that? Let's pray. Father, I'm not praying for a better year. I think I'm just praying for a shift in my heart set, a shift in my mindset. You continue to work. You tell us that you work all things together for the good of those who love you. We trust that. And so instead of harboring bitterness or paralysis, Lord, we plant those seeds in the fertile soil of surrender. And we say, we are going to continue to dream. And in the pivots and the shifts, know that you are maneuvering us to have eternal impact in this world. We love you. And every day, every week, every year, we are learning to trust you more. In your precious name, amen.